Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of January 28th through February the 3rd of 2020. Thanks so much for being a part of highvibe.tv. I got good news. If you've never watched a show before, of course, this is the show that gives you the astrology by going deep into the astrology, where I channel it the first half and then going deep into the charts, which are brought to you by Astrogold for iOS, Android, or any Mac device. You can get it on Astrogold, but if you're on PC, check out Solar Fire. That good news, though, is highvibe.tv, where this show is exclusive in its full form and with all my daily horoscopes and my now monthly horoscope, which is part of being part of a member, is on sale right now for 20% off the whole entire website and for the apps. But you got to purchase it all through highvibe.tv. Even every subscription package, monthly, 3-month, or 6-month, and all paid videos and so forth, 20% off. Just type in the discount code DEEPLOVE. We want to bring everybody on right now and give everybody a chance to check us out, see what's going on, and with all the awesome content. And my monthly horoscopes are going to be on here as well. So it's quite a deal. And you get my daily horoscopes, and you get notifications, and you get my weekly sun sign horoscopes. There's a ton on there. Check it out now by checking out highvibe.tv and get that discount code. It's going to end Friday night. So Deep Love is the discount code. And this is quite a time in our lives. I think a lot of people are wondering what the hell is going on. And that's because there's a lot going on in the world right now. There's, of course, a lot of different fears and a lot of why did this happen, whether it was the death of Kobe Bryant to the coronavirus that's going around, or just if you look at your own personal life, trying to understand where things are going. It's kind of hard to try and understand the world right now. It's hard to understand where spirituality or life is even going. And this is a great test for us to find positivity, to find strength. And this week is really going to be one of those hallmarks to that. That's because this week we do have a lot of aspects that are going to be testing the emotional world very intensely. And before we go into that, I just want to remind people that we are closing out the cycle of the lunar nodes, which have been in Cancer and Capricorn. They're finally going to move into Gemini and Sagittarius on May the 5th of 2020. So we've been dealing with these lunar nodes since November of 2018. And so with the North Node that's been in Cancer, wherever the moon is, and already being Cancer, and with the North Node here, it's a once in every 18, 19 year cycle, which ironically enough is very connected to 2003 with SARS. There's a lot of things that deal with this understanding when it comes to, one, we're dealing with a heavy emotional time. And, this is a time where we got to follow the moon. The moon is really the reflector of the energies that we're going through. And with the sun that's been in Aquarius, and it's still in Aquarius, of course, throughout this whole week, we've gone through a very weird period here, especially over this last, this new moon that was on Friday, the Chinese New Year. Whenever we're dealing with Aquarius energy, and then you go from that new moon of a sun and moon in Aquarius, which is already weird and off and feeling alien, then you go to the sun with the moon in Pisces, which is where Neptune and Venus were, and Mars was squaring that. It's extreme sensitivity being forced to look at and trying to find a positive hope through it all. But this week, we're going to have to find courage, and we're going to have to find, the value of life again, as the moon is going to come into Aries, and it's going to come into Taurus this weekend, and then into Gemini on Monday. And these are the youthful signs, right? The beginning of the zodiac is Aries. So we've been at this very tail end of the zodiac, dealing with kind of feeling like we're on another universe, another timeline, another parallel universe, another world. And it's a little difficult to deal with, especially as Mars is in Sagittarius trying to, adventure and have courage by seeing hope is what is the driving force of Sagittarius, especially with Mars there. It's the driving force that needs hope. But when you see that big square to Neptune that we just finished here yesterday on Monday, it's like we have literally been blasted by, like a big tidal wave of emotion and sensitivity and fear. Because it also is Neptune. Neptune can bring out panic. It can bring out kind of like a spiritual panic, though, about life in general and where things are going, and a need to feel like we need to escape, or we need some escape route in life. But this week, we are moving into positive energy of Venus that's going to be making good aspects to Saturn and Pluto. So we need to make a different adjustment to the way that we look at our values and feel good in our life. And we need to remember that we're all human beings, and we're adults though too, as Saturn and Capricorn is going to make nice aspects to Venus as well. And of course, like I know this is not the easiest of times, but that moon in Aries is going to be helping us remember that we need to emotionally keep moving forward in life. And I know that's not something that maybe like people want to hear, like, come on, you can keep moving forward, but we have to. I mean, this is not a time for us to just say we're going to give up on life and we're just going to give up on things. We got to stay positive and we got to find a way to keep moving forward with that positivity. That moon in Aries is going to be in a good aspect with Mars, but it is going to make some big squares over to all the Capricorn energy. So no, it's not going to be the easiest of things, but it is about reminding ourselves that we've got to create the storylines ourselves. Right now, there's a lot of stories going around in the world and so forth, and that's valid. And I think that, more in my life in the last 4 days have I seen more conspiracy stuff in my whole entire life than ever. And of course, there might be a lot of valid points to that. I don't even want to put out there and even talk about this, but I think that it's important for us. We all want information. We all want to understand things. With Mercury and Aquarius, of course, we're trying to figure out every little nook and cranny of the world and how it all connects. But there is this point to where we also have to remember that we need to create stories of positivity, stories of love, stories of hope in our life, to combat these other kind of informational stories. Because if we're just going to live our life by the Mars and Sag story of this only, this is what we're dealing with, is the Kobe Bryant death and the coronavirus, and then in your own life, there's been disappointments. When Mars meets in a square to Neptune, it's a feeling of a disappointment, or it's a feeling like there's no way to get through kind of the great kind of illusion or the great kind of letdown that Neptune can bring in Pisces, especially with Venus that was on top of there. It was like aiming real high for a positive and high, beautiful, world, but, kind of seeing an opposite. And I think that this is where we have to now create the stories. This is a week about creating the stories. Because with this moon in Aries, we have to start to identify, and of course Chiron's in Aries, so it's not going to be, the easiest when it comes to feeling like maybe the identification of the world we want or our own lives or how are we going to move forward. We feel like we're not only sensitive, but that we might lack the ability to. And I think that we got to learn to get out of the lack consciousness right now this week, because this is a time to remember the abundant beauty that's around us in our lives. We need to stay compassionate for the world, and we need to put our hopes and our dreams still out there in the world. That's what keeps the world in survival mode, is the ability to step into your creative power, the ability to still have hopes and dreams and a beautiful vision of life and a beautiful vision for God. This is not where we, create our own victim mentality about what is externally happening to us. Remember that new moon was in a square to Uranus for the first time since Uranus was in Taurus in the 30s, because in 2019 and in 2018, we did not deal with a Sun in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus. This was the first time for most of us that are even watching this show that were not alive during the 1930s. So I think that it's important for us to realize that we've entered a zone we've never entered before, and especially when it deals with outer circumstances and in a weird place, testing our value, testing our worth, and testing our ability to see the value in things. It's almost like the universe is trying to actually ascend us into higher value systems by taking the ones away from us that we valued and realizing that we have to value them even more, instead of throwing them all away or throwing this beautiful earth or throwing away this beautiful identification of the world that we live in down the tubes. Saturn and Pluto has not been easy in Capricorn. That physically conjuncted on January the 12th. And ever since then, you're feeling the slow bring out of what was that Saturn and Pluto conjunction about. Pluto is a very hidden energy, and it takes a while for it to come out. And Saturn is a slow energy, so it's a slow trickle out. And I think that, Saturn and Pluto definitely bring the great fears to the world, especially in Capricorn, the feeling of, that there's not a lot of emotion or safety. But I think that, it is about remembering that you have to have the grit and the determination and the cardinal energy to move forward and to create the path in your life. And I think that when you come into decision points and you make decisions is where you'll find power right now, instead of sitting in a place of I don't know or a place of I don't know what's next. Take the steps, and you don't need to make the biggest steps hard. Find the small steps in between and focus on those right now. We're also going to have this moon that's going to enter into Taurus this week, and it's going to be this weekend, and this will be the first time that the sun is going to square the moon in Taurus while Uranus is in Taurus, while the sun's in Aquarius since the 1930s. So this is going to bring up another weird energy this weekend, but we do have the nice trines, though, happening from the moon over to Saturn and Pluto. And we have Venus that's going to be making really good aspects to Pluto. So this is a time where we can change especially because the moon is exalted in Taurus and Venus is the ruler of Taurus and Venus is in exaltation. It's going to be making great aspects to Pluto and Saturn. So I think that we're going to come through this week. I think that it's a little bit difficult as we start this week and as we come into this moon in Aries, having to find a re-identification and courage in our lives and to move forward again. But we have to remember that there are positive, there are good things. We need to create love. We need to create projects that bring creativity and happiness into our lives. And we need to be willing to spread that to others. And remember that a moon is exalted in Taurus because it feels good through valuing things. It will not feel good right now in your life if you're going to constantly look at the weirdness of the world and not value any part of the world at all, or value something that you think is unattainable or that it's not going to be possible. Because if you're attaching yourself to value systems or manifesting, negative energy constantly because there's no way for anything positive to happen, it's just going to be a detrimental storm into your life. So this is not going to be the time to continue those stories. Mars is the writer of stories when it comes into especially Sagittarius. The reason why is because it actually defines what the story is. Jupiter will speak a lot of stories and it will have a lot of stories to talk about through experience, but Mars is the one in the story, in the battle, in the war. And with Mercury being the page, this is the last week of Mercury not in shadow. That means Mercury is getting ready for its retrograde that's going to happen in Pisces. And so at the end of this week by Monday, and after this weekend, we come into Mercury into Pisces, where it's at its fall position, where we get really confused, where we get, a harder understanding of things in life. And so it's very important this week to put your mind in a good space, to put your mind in a prepared state about understanding your future, understanding where you're going to take things, having conversations with people, and letting people know what's the most important things that need to get done, that needs to happen, and to get the clarity you need, because we're going to go into a very foggy time when it comes to communication and when it comes to trying to understand the world in general. And if you think this week already brought you that, well, it's going to continue even weirder when Mercury comes into shadow and especially into Pisces. And I don't think that's anything to be scared of. Mercury in Pisces as well can be about learning to, bug out a little bit, right? And kind of go back into the imagination. So this Mercury in Pisces could be a very good thing. But the shadow part of it, remember, it means it's going to be a Mercury retrograde that will come back to these areas. And technically, Mercury goes shadow at 28 degrees of Aquarius. So it's not like we're going to be only in Pisces, like last year when Mercury went retrograde in Pisces at 29 degrees of Pisces, and it stayed in Pisces for over 60 days. I mean, it was a long transit. At least this one gets a little bit of a breather when it goes back into Aquarius. But we are going to go through a long Mercury Pisces season again this year, and I think that it's important for us to remember that, this is a time for us right now this week to create the right stories. We got the moon in good placements as far as in the first 3 signs of the zodiac, and we've got to bring our youth back out in our life. We've got to bring some childlike energy into our life. We also have great aspects to Venus and its exaltation to Saturn and Pluto, where we can make great change in our value systems and what makes us feel good. And we need to focus on what makes us feel good. We need to focus on our good creativity. And with the sun in Aquarius, we have to remember that this is a time where even when the world thinks like it's going down, Aquarius figures it out. When we come together, when we ask for help, when we're there for each other. And this is a time for us all to be there for each other. Understand that we all come from different places. We all come from different energies. We all come from different emotional states. And this is not a time for all of us to judge each other or judge where anybody's at in their journey, because we're all in a weird place. And it's those unique weird places that we're all at that means that other people are not in that place that's there to help in the circle of life that we're all in. And if you think about it on a collective scale right now, we're all going through our own weird stuff. But it's weird because we all mean that other places, we're not in a weird place. But maybe that person's in a weird place in the place that you're not weird. And so that's where this is all about coming together, that we all have something to offer to the plate. We all have something to offer to this beautiful dinner table that the universe is serving us all at. And we all have what we're here to bring to that. And we all are going through our own weird emotional stuff, our own weird issues in life, and our own weird fears about the world. Some people are afraid of the coronavirus. Some people are overly obsessed and, scared about what happened with Kobe, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm using just 2 stories, but it could come from even just personal life stuff. We're all on different edges of the scales of this journey. And we're all trying to find a way to come together right now. And especially when this is going to be the week where we've got to use Mercury's energy to really start to understand, have those conversations and what could be done. Use this week as a positive. All the planets are direct. And remember that Saturn, it's getting ready to come into its shadow period. So this is where all the planets are direct. Not a lot of planets in shadow. Even Pluto is out of shadow. And this is going to be Venus, on one of its last full weeks here, and with actual aspects that are really positive to especially that Saturn-Pluto thing, to maybe put some sort of more beautiful flowers over the whole of weirdness that Saturn and Pluto conjuncted on January 12th, okay? So this is going to be a moment where we could actually put something nice over that graveyard. You know what I mean? Like, we can actually put some flowers over the grave a little bit here. And I think that we need to remember that this week and not lose hope. And I think that we need to not be afraid to make connection. People are our number one ally right now in our life. Connections of relationships, friendships, group events. And I know that this is a time where the world's trying to be scared about other people. And if somebody has a virus, and if they have it within 14 days, and da-da-da-da-da. But I think that this is a time as well where we need people at the same time, and there's a lot more fear and there's a lot of disinformation that we don't know all the facts about things. And I think that if we look at things from much more of a positive energy and we start to see, things from a much more logical point of view and disconnect the emotional world, because we have gone through an emotional wrecking here, because that new moon in Aquarius was square Uranus. That new moon was in Aquarius, right? It feels shocked a little bit with Uranus there. It's never had that since the 30s. So going back to even this week with the moon in Pisces, and then it squared Mars with Venus and Neptune right on top. That was supposed to be this beautiful echelon of the hopes and dreams and the positivities and relationships and projects and just your overall good feelings. And Mars was there hammering it with, my experience right now in the battlefield is, this is the story that the world's being told, right? So it's like, uh-oh, that goes into the sensitivities of, we got to realize that Venus and Neptune together is like the ultimate empath energy, and the empathic parts of ourselves have all been kind of taking on these stories that we don't tell ourselves normally, or that we don't live by, or that we don't really experience. And this is the first time that we've all lived through a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. And this is just only a couple weeks into it, almost 3 weeks. So, remember that this is a time where people have survived this before. People have survived way worse in life, and that we are survival people. And we are survival through love. We are survival through creativity. We are survival through having hopes and dreams. And if we're not going to put that first in our lives this week, and we're just going to continue to keep saying that the stories that bring us down and our victim stories of our own lives and the external world are going to be what's running this thing, we're not going to have a good week. And this is not what we want to spread out to the world. This is not what we want to spread out to others. This is the time for us to step into that power, step into relationships, step into people, and not be afraid. If we are so afraid, then why aren't we stepping into things as if it was our last days, and bringing only but love and happiness and enjoying this as if it was our last days on earth anyway? That's a good question to ask yourself. So I want to remind people, if you're joining in and you're watching this on YouTube, that right now we're doing a big sale right now on highvibe.tv. If you want to watch this second portion of the show, of course, I always put out the audio version right now. But if you want to watch this, you can be a part of highvibe.tv. 20% off, type in the discount code DEEPLOVE. So this is going to be where we go into the charts now, and we have a blast. So here we are at Tuesday, which, this is a crazy week that we've been going through. And again, go to highvibe.tv if you want to watch the rest of this part of the show. This is a lot going on with this moon here finishing in Pisces. And, it is a moon that is technically void off course. So it's like kind of drifting away into space and feeling a little bit odd and kind of the darkness, right? The end of Pisces actually is kind of the darkness before the dawn. And it's also in between Chiron and Neptune, the moon. So, this Tuesday night is like everybody's emotions is scattered and feeling in a very weird place, is feeling very off, is feeling like a little bit of loss and where to go in life. And that's pretty extreme. The sun at 8 degrees here. And so it's made its quincunx over to the North Node, which was on Monday. So Monday was pretty weird, having the moon on Neptune and Venus with Mars squaring it. But that Mars now is done with the square to Neptune. and Venus has moved faster. And so Venus and the moon are moving through Pisces, and the moon is going to leave and come into Aries on Wednesday. So there is something to say that we are moving through some of that more weirder vibe, especially emotionally and in our feel-good energies. And I think that that's a positive. And the sun coming off the North Node has brought this kind of like weird angle of feeling, disconnected to an emotional safe place in our lives, no matter what you look at it like, whether it's a world event to your own personal life or wherever you're dealing with and feeling like you need something that needs an answer, a fix to a scientist to fix it, or a doctor to fix it, or somebody that's got some sort of higher knowledge or some sort of plan that's figured it out already. And I think this is where we have to bring our inner authority back. And that's something that I really have been stressing for the last, I don't know how many years about this Saturn Pluto. It's about inner authority. It's when you just decide to make a decision in your life and take action towards that decision and not sit on the fence, that actually things go a lot easier and a lot better. Mercury here at 21 degrees. This is why I'm talking about that Mercury is getting ready for its shadow, as it's going to make it up to 28 degrees by Monday. So with Mercury here at 21 degrees and not making any weird aspects right now, it is a time for us to really start to have the conversations we need, move things forward in our life to understand where that's at. As we move on to Wednesday, we are going into a different vibe because we are going to have that moon into Aries now, and we are going to start to see the moon in Aries bringing up a better energy, just for the fact with the sun being in Aquarius, the sun and the moon are in their waxing phase as far as the moon is, and it's in a good aspect with the sun in Aquarius. So this moon in Aries is bringing us confidence and courage again, but with Chiron there, we are going over wounds of where maybe the identification or maybe the way that we want to see things are still emotionally not there, but it is a sun in Aquarius offering some kind of random luck or random different ways of life. Maybe the universe has brought us here to see things from an angle that we weren't expecting. So maybe let go of any kind of ego identification of how you want it to look or how you want to see or whatever news keeps coming out. Remember, with Mercury in Aquarius, it's always feeling like it's shocking news, shocking situations, but sometimes it's also like we don't really know till we know. There has to be a full understanding of all the pieces before you can make an assumption. And so nobody assumes. I've never met an Aquarius that assumes anything in my life. Never. That's why I love Aquarians, because they don't assume. They're not going to come in assuming, well, I assumed you were doing that. It's like, no, they are very good about understanding all the pieces. And they'll be like, well, I mean, it could be that, it could be this. I don't know. I don't know these other pieces, so I'm not going to assume they're doing that. Let me just call them and see. So an Aquarius will call and see. They won't assume and then not do anything. That's why I like Aquarius. And I think we all have to step more into that vibe instead of assuming things so much. Especially with that moon in Aries now, we have to have that drive, that confidence, that courage, and move forward. The good news is once it moves over past Chiron, that moon is going to make some nice sextiles coming into Wednesday night. And it's excited because it also is going to make good trines on Thursday to Mars. But the lunar moon is going to make square to the lunar nodes. And so, there is a little bit of pressure when it comes to, are we just going to keep, doing this kind of like, always having to make choices or always feeling like the world's heavy? Or are we going to find some emotional comfort? So I feel that Wednesday night, I think it's important for you if you have a friend that you want to go talk to about building your courage back up in your life and cheerleading with, or you have a Netflix and chill buddy, or you have, or girl, I don't know, that might say whatever that is. But if you just have somebody that you could come together with, because this is a time about coming into emotion. And I think that we have to allow ourselves to build the emotions or let the emotions out and remind each other and be there for each other to get that confidence back. And this moon in Aries gives us the confidence to move. And with this sun in Aquarius, it's letting us know we got to connect. We got to be there with people. We got to find our tribe right now, and that we are a tribe of a whole entire world. And I think that, it's difficult with Jupiter in Capricorn because, of course, this is a time where the only hopes that we're looking at are the state of our accomplishments, the state of the world and where it's at as far as where it's going, as far as its understanding of, is this world successful or is it failing, or is this world, completely going to tower card itself with Saturn and Pluto there. Jupiter's kind of predicting that or thinking that. It's not there yet, but it is getting ready to come to Pluto. So there is this kind of, we've never in our lives seen Jupiter-Pluto conjunct in Capricorn. That's coming up here in April. So That's why the fears are kind of getting more and more intense. And I think that this is going to be a time for us to not allow ourselves to allow fear to overwhelm us, because Jupiter's there. Even though Jupiter is at its fall position, Jupiter's not going to, Uncle Jupe's not going to fuck us over. You know, like, we're going to find ways through all the things that we're afraid of in our lives, individually and on a world scale. So that's why I'm bringing us to Thursday now, where it's going to be very important for us now that the moon's going to be at a very intense position. The moon will be halfway through Aries, will be at 15 degrees, and we're going to see also at the same time Venus at 20 degrees. The reason why I'm bringing up Venus at 20, because this is the degree that Neptune will retrograde this late spring at. So Venus is kind of going to give us a little bit of premonition of what Neptune's energy is going to be like over this next, 5-month, 6-month cycle, or it's about 5-month cycle here, as it comes up to its shadow, retrograde zone. And I feel that this is going to be an important place to look at in the astrology, because this is, reminding us of where we can seed positive energy for when Neptune does come to retrograde at this point. It's this day and how we handle things that could really be a way of how we're going to see the next couple months, I would say, to 3 months play out, especially with that moon, which is going to make a square to Jupiter. We don't want to overinflate anything that is negative. We've got the moon and Mars in Sag, and so we got a nice trine there that's saying we need to take action, be positive, and write and create better stories, and not look at the negative stories, but look at maybe what is not working in the world, or where we're feeling that we're not achieving where we want to achieve, or what steps we don't know what to do. And instead of getting Debbie Downer about that or not believing, we need to emotionally identify what those are, and identify what are those things in life that are being seen, and take action on them, and with a positive action. And that's a big part of this week as well. And with the sun that'll be at 10 degrees on that day, that means that we are stepping into the second decan of Aquarius, which means that we are moving now into a much more stronger, but also much more intense aspect of Aquarius. But it's one where we can find more stability, one where we can find more stability through continuing to move forward in life, continuing to realize that there will always be something to figure out, some out of nowhere epiphany, some out of nowhere person. There's always a way that comes together. There's too much positive here that's not being looked at, while there is also a major negative, kind of darker energy, just illusionary, with this South Node, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. And I think that, every morning when we wake up, if I show you real quick, so if I just take today, for example, and I'll go into Wednesday morning, and we'll do the hours. Every morning you are waking up with Mars rising in Sag. At 4:22 a.m., you're probably asleep. But when the sunrise comes, here's 6:22 a.m., and this is pretty much, depending on where you're at in the world, you'd have to see where your sunrise is. Of course, if you're in Australia, it's summer, so it's different. But there is something to say that we are waking up every morning with South Node, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn on the horizon line. This is what we call planets when they rise. So we have this very dark force that is rising every morning right now. And then the sun comes right after into Aquarius. So we're not really starting our days with a lot of positive energy in the world, okay? But we're setting the days much... We're setting the days in a much different aspect. We are setting them, sure, there's a bunch of energy, this is West Coast, so about 2:30 to 3:30, and then into 4, right? But when that sun sets, especially because we're in winter here in America, they go below the horizon. And it's almost like at sunset, we start to get clarity about things, start to find peace in our lives. And this is why I think, there was a study that just came out that in 2019, especially the last 6 months, that the average sleep of an American was at 5.5 hours, which they tell us to get 7 to 8, but you can go research that right now Americans, and I don't know what the research is for around the world, but not a lot of people are getting a lot of sleep right now. And you have to remember that the sign of sleep is Pisces or Cancer. And right now this is massive Capricorn, which is work and feeling like a slave. And it's got a kind of a darker force. And I think that people are staying up later because it feels more comfortable later at night, because at nighttime, this energy all goes away. It goes below the horizon line. You got to remember that on Earth, we are sitting wherever you're at the top. So at nighttime, you are not seeing Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, right? At all. And it's almost like at nighttime, really late, is where you feel the most comfortable because there is no planets up in the sky. None. So it almost is like the time when the universe goes dead for a minute and you don't know what's going on, and you just kind of can disconnect a little bit from the universe. But when we continue to keep waking up every morning, bang, you wake up to this gnarly energy that's rising in the morning. And it's not fun throughout the day because if you notice throughout the day, every planet is literally up in the sky, but because the sun is so bright, you can't see them. So hidden behind the sun is every planet when you're up in the day. If you look at the chart right now, this is what we call a locomotive. But even more than a locomotive, this is a rare configuration. If you have all the planets within less than 180 degrees of the chart, right? So imagine if you had a pizza and half the pizza had all the toppings, and even on that other half, 2 of the pieces of the pizza didn't have any toppings. But like those, it's almost like if there were 6 slices or 12 slices, like literally 4 slices of pizza had all the pieces of pizza and they're right next to each other, and everything else had no cheese, and nothing. That's a lot. That's why this is so intense, and that's why the days are just not really, it's like too much energy, and it's a lot that's trying to be figured out and go on, and that's why at nighttime it cools down. So I just want to remind that to people. So that moon in Aries is going to be very important for you on the 30th to really set the tone of a better identity, a better courage, and to remember to continue to ask help. And on Friday, January 31st, we are moving into the moon finishing here in Aries as we rise in the morning with it. Well, actually, sorry, in the middle of the day it will rise in the morning. And it's getting ready to come into Taurus and come over Uranus. But if we start to look at the planets, Saturn comes to 25 degrees. So I think that this will be a little bit better of a degree, although this is the last degree before we come into its shadow period, because if I remember right, Saturn is coming to 26 in shadow. So we're not in shadow yet, but we are at, 25. We're getting close to Saturn entering in Aquarius, which is March 22nd. We have Pluto that's out of shadow. We have the sun at 11 degrees, and it's not making any aspects to anything. So there's another reason why we feel so weird and off in the universe a little bit. That on January 30th and 31st, the sun is not aspecting anything, but it's surrounded by a bunch of things going on. So it doesn't feel connected to the planets at all. It doesn't feel connected to anything. And already in Aquarius, without having connection, we all feel a little bit like we're lonely birds out there in the weird world alone. And then you got that fear element of that Saturn-Pluto there. But here's Venus at 21 degrees trying to start to make good aspects here to Pluto and to Saturn. That's what's coming on the weekend. So I think Friday is going to be a little bit weird as far as just like kind of figuring things out. The moon is going to be in square to Saturn and Pluto. So we're going to feel kind of stressed out, and maybe how are we going to do this for this weekend, and where's this weekend energy going? But, there's something to say that we got to have. That's why I'm saying write those good stories on the 30th. Write those positive energies, because Friday could feel a little stressful, and then the moon doesn't even come into Taurus later at night. And that's when it conjuncts with Uranus, and that's going to be starting to square over to the sun. And, this moon in Aries, though, will make a good aspect to Mercury. So we've got to think clearly and stay positive and not let any challenges or anything overwhelm us, because we'll be able to figure them out. We can't emotionally attach to the fear of challenge. We have the ability to figure it out. On Saturday, now we have that moon in Taurus, which is exalted, and it's more positive. And we have Venus at 22 going 23 that day, which will make an aspect to Pluto. It's time to make changes in what makes us feel better in our life. Remembering the abundance that this life has, but that moon will also square over to the sun in Aquarius, which means that we are going to have to remember that it's a time for us to figure things out and not hold on or be a hoarder to negative energies. We need to be positive. These are fixed energies, and this fixed energy is reminding us to hold positive space, good energy, hold positive space, hold connection to beautiful things. And that's what this is going to be about. Mercury's on one of its last days of being in direct motion with no shadow, 27. It's going to come out to 28 where it's going to be in its shadow period. Venus making great aspects to Pluto. We need to make a big change about how we see the world, how we see our goals, how we see our life. And this is a powerful weekend for relationships, with the Venus being an exalted of Pisces and making good aspects to Saturn and Pluto. These are relationships that can really be changeful in our life, that they could help us lead us forward, that they could be real, that they could be decisive. Mars at 19 degrees here. It's off of the squares to Neptune and so forth. So we could be positive with this energy. It is still making a minor square over to both, but it's kind of activating, I think, with the minor square element to the positive sextile to the Saturn and Pluto conjunction to put over that kind of graveyard on the grave, right? Like, you know, like put some more, you know, beautiful flowers and stuff over that grave hole that is Saturn and Pluto that we've been through. Now when we move over to Sunday, there's going to be a lot going on Super Bowl Sunday. And this might be a very interesting one because it's going to be a feel-good energy, believe it or not. So I know that maybe some of the spiritual community, they don't like football or sports or something like that, but you know, maybe Super Bowl Sunday might be one of those moments in life for people to actually realize that we all need each other, that there's positive energy. The moon's going to be at 21 degrees, making great trines over to Saturn and Pluto. The moon's going to be a nice sextile over to Venus, as it's made its sextile over to Pluto and now to Saturn. And the moon's off the square to the sun. And you know what? I think that it's one of those days where there's a lot of positive aspects, especially this beautiful trine and sextile over to Venus and its exaltation. So it's going to be about, you know, feeling good, feeling positive, and relationships are a very important part of this with the sun in Aquarius and with the moon in Taurus to feel better, and a really good aspect of Venus in its exaltation. We've got the moon and Venus in exaltation, and they're connected to Saturn and Pluto, which are trying to make a very big fundamental change in our lives. So I would definitely use Sunday as one of the days in proper energy with relationships, connecting to people, and feeling good, and really, you know, some of these people might be karmically fated for you when it comes to helping you move forward in a better way of life through the conversations you have, through the things that you're doing in your life, you know, and remembering you have people, and whether that's new people or whatever that is, or it's just your family or it's your friends, it don't matter. This is just reminding you that there are great people in your life, there are good people, and it's going to be important to be surrounded by energies that remind you to be positive and create positive stories and have good laughs and have visions of the beautiful future instead of buying negative stories or buying a negative outcome of life. We can't do that anymore. We've got to stay in a more positive state, because when we come into Monday, Mercury is now in Pisces and the shadow period has begun in Mercury. And that's why I'm saying it's important to use that positive energy of this weekend to really set the tone different. Because now with Mercury in Pisces, it's fall position, it's lost, it's doesn't get information, and if you're buying the fears that are being put out by the world, or you're buying the news or the story fears, and now you're Mercury in Pisces, we're not going to be getting any really clear clarity for a while. This is going to go into some really weird places. Mercury in Pisces can definitely bring up, you know, secrets and weird things, and it's very Page of Swords reversed. We have Saturn at 25, but Venus is finishing with Saturn. So it's like we've got to kind of set the tone to remember what feels good instead of our mind trying to understand a world where it's not going to be able to. We got to just do what feels good and not use them. And maybe it's good that Mercury's going into Pisces. Maybe Mercury in Aquarius is trying to figure out way too much. We all think we're scientists. We're all on the internet thinking that we know the answer to the coronavirus, or we know that the Umbrella Corporation and, you know, Raccoon City and fucking, you know, like I went into that. So, you know, like I could tell you all that I think that Mercury in Pisces might make us realize and humble ourselves that God's the one that has the answers to this one. And why don't we just focus on the beautiful things that we can make and share and grow with in our lives. Mars is not squaring anything at that point, but Mercury is, you know, it is in a, well, it is going to square the moon in Gemini. So, you know, this might be a little fanatical in a sense, with the moon in Gemini trying to understand things, and Mercury is in Pisces. So you could really twist yourself in a weird direction if you're going to go off your mind when Venus is offering a positive solution with Saturn, like, hey, let's just focus on physical stuff. Let's focus on what's in front of us. Let's focus on our plan. Let's focus on the plan that feels good, instead of getting lost into the what ifs, lost into trying to get every answer, because we're not going to get every answer. And I know that that's a problem with people, what I see on the internet and so forth, people feeling like the world, the governments aren't giving us all the answers. Like, sure, that's possible and that probably is true. But I'm here to tell you at the same token, does that really matter? You can come up with those in your own life, in your own self, and bring that positive. I want to thank you so much for being part of Deep Astrology. I want to thank you so much for all being a part of HighVibe.tv. Make sure that you check out the awesome sale that we got going on. 20% off. Type in the discount code DEEPLOVE. And of course, you also get that awesome show that Craig and I do on Wednesdays, which is Full Disclosure. And we have a great time on that show. Him and I full disclose stuff that we cannot put on YouTube. So definitely check us out for that. And we're working on another show right now that'll be free on YouTube. But YouTube, I'm still doing the same things, putting out other content, putting out other stuff. But High Vibe is definitely a place that we'd love for you to check out. 20% off. It's what allows us to continue to do shows like this. It's allowing us to do the things that we want to do with bringing spirituality and bringing positivity to people. And it's a way to access all of my exclusive content, including I'll be filming this week and putting out on the first of every month a monthly horoscope. So that's something that a lot of people ask for. We're delivering on that promise, and that is part of the subscription. You can still buy the monthly horoscope for me, but you know, I always have put those monthly horoscopes at $15, $20. And literally right now, you can subscribe and get access to not only those horoscopes, but you can get all of my dailies and everything else for way, way cheaper than that. So definitely, you don't want to miss out on this. 20% off. Go to Deep Love as a discount code on highvibe.tv. And then download the app on iPhone, Android, or Roku, or Apple TV. I love Apple TV. My mom just called me on the way here, was like, oh, I love it on Apple TV. So. But all you do is log in from there. And you have full control of your account. You can cancel anytime. And we do have chat on the app. We have chat on every video. You could comment. We have a chat on the website. And we got a lot of other cool things. We got the notifications. So check it out. Thanks so much for all the support, everybody. We love you very much. Thanks for being a part of High Vibe. And we will see you on the next Deep Astrology.